Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a little short review for you of something that I actually reviewed in the past on the channel, which is the Angus Jubilee. Last time I reviewed it for, of course, the super popular Seiko SKX. And today I will be reviewing it for their latest release, which is for the Cocktail Time application. And of course, the demo watch here is not your average Cocktail Time. This is actually that beautiful snowflake dial, limited edition there, which is still readily available and at quite a reasonable price, if you ask me. Of course, some are gonna, argue about, the lack of sapphire or whatnot. I'm fine with it at the price point and for what it's offering, and the fact that this is not just any mineral crystal. This is Seiko's Hardlex. Let's not forget the same very nice crystals that I've had on tons of their sport models, including dive watches that have pretty much never chipped or scratched for me, versus your average mineral that you'll find on even, let's say, Seiko's one of their cousins in Orient, which have chipped quite easily and scratched in comparison. So I think there's definitely more to the Hardlex crystal name than just the name. So with that said, we'll get into the bracelet here. As you can see, looking just gorgeous. Those end links are fitting quite well. And let's go ahead and get this strap code in hand and on wrist. So give you guys kind of a better idea of how this thing works. All right, so let's start off with getting this in hand. Give it a couple. One, take advantage of looking at that gorgeous dial. As you can see, the way it plays with the light. Absolutely magnificent. For the full review of this particular timepiece, make sure to check my channel. And then here you go. This is probably what many of you are wondering. What is the profile on this look like? As you can see, of course, this is a, with that big domed crystal there, this is a beefier watch that is, many consider too big to be really a dedicated dress watch, and it really falls more into kind of that everyday watch category. And I think that this bracelet goes really well. You can see the end link fitment also pretty spot on there, especially considering some of Seiko's own end links don't necessarily concentrate on really lining up with the lugs and the case. There's a lot of different kind of layering that they do, from their own archive, versus here, this is probably a more traditional fitment than if Seiko was to fit this with a Jubilee. There would be, a dip down in some weird way or have some odd shape here. They were pretty clearly just trying to, one, match into the end link there, but also match the links themselves, right? They want the end link shape to flow in with these links, and I think it does a really great job. I think this top profile is probably the best way to look at it. I think what you get to over here, this is just part of the Angus Jubilee. It's a little bit big. I mean, these links are quite large versus their Super Jubilee. Me personally, I would have preferred if they would have done a Super Jubilee style link versus the Angus, but I can appreciate kind of the higher finishing quality and definitely the nicer end link style there on their Angus Jubilee bracelet. So, but this bracelet, basically, we've seen it on some of the other dressier SARB models, and honestly, I felt like it was a bit too thick for those. Here, I think it's probably a little bit closer, especially due to the scale of the watch being, 40 millimeters or 40.5 or whatever it ends up being. I'll have to check the full review, or actually, you know what, I probably put the regular watch stats on there in the beginning of the video. So as far as, with the size and the scale, of course, something like a 38 for me, that's going to be a little bit of a thinner profile and whatnot. Might, for me, I don't know. I just thought that the scale, probably the proportions wouldn't be as good. I think here the proportions are a lot better. And then, of course, you do have this great sports clasp, which I do enjoy. As you can see, stays closed. There's nothing loose about it or anything like that. Really nice. There's no play on that little flap, which happens from time to time in this style. Not the case. Then you have all these micro adjusts, which is absolutely great. Honestly, I'll take a milled clasp like this with great micro adjust options over kind of a chintzy, doing just enough toolless adjust, because honestly those ones are just, I feel like a lot of those are just checking a box. Hey, you have a toolless clasp, that somehow that makes it better. For me, this is more functional, and it totally does the job. I'm fine with that. This isn't a dive watch anyway, so it's not like it, to me, it doesn't really need to be super technological. I mean, even in this case, this would honestly probably not even have a flipping lock clasp like this. If it was released from Seiko, it would definitely have a butterfly style clasp. So, this is already kind of enough of an extra bonus there. I don't think it needs to have too much more. And I think it actually, as far as the scale matching up with the case, I think it fits really well there. But with that said, let's go ahead and get this piece on
Okay,
wrist.
now as you can see on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, this thing wears just about perfect. And I think, of course, with a little context of it being on wrist, now it does help subdue those larger links a bit. You can see now just has more of a natural shape once it's wrapped around the human wrist. Of course, these end links do protrude out a bit there, but this hangs quite low underneath. But if you have a super small wrist or something like that, that might be a concern for you. But I would think that, anybody in kind of that 7 inch and above would have really nothing to worry about. This is 7 1/4 inches. Look at that dial. I know this review is not about the dial of this watch, but hey, it looks great. Let's face it. So this is really nice. And I guess tying into kind of the watch there, because there's not so much you can really say about this bracelet. It does have screw-in links. It does everything you ask it to. Everything is solid, everything is smooth, everything is well finished. And of course, look at the drape on that. This thing wears really well. And as somebody who has, of course, 2 other snowflake dials in the arsenal, I will tell you this watch on this strap is actually still quite a bit cheaper than you're going to get the other options for, right? The Sarks. My Sarks 055 is $1,000 watch, 900-ish range if you're lucky, $850 if you are just finding a great deal. And then, of course, my SJE 073, that one is like $2,200 if you're gonna get it at retail, if you don't get one that's been marked up. So I mean, I was very fortunate, to find a great deal on the one I purchased. Otherwise I probably wouldn't even bought it. But with those 2 other options that are much more expensive, and over $2,000 and right around $1,000, this bad boy now, really being, $400 watch now added with another $100 brace, $500. This is, this is a looker. $500 with a snowflake dial? I mean, and this timeless cocktail time, dressings there. And I mean, honestly, there's tons of awesome cocktail time watches. They all have great dials. There's not one that has a plain dial, a matte dial on it. All of them have some cool texturing and all the tricks. Basically, it's Seiko's. They have probably one of the more boring cases with tons of awesome dial options, and this being one of them. For me, I think one of their top dial options in the cocktail line, and one of the more special ones, of course, considering that it's limited. But yeah, I think this thing just steps it up a notch. And I know a lot of people had a lot of questions. Hey, they list this as the Power Reserve model, this and that. I mean, the Power Reserve model's thicker. I mean, do you guys really think that Seiko was going to have a thicker watch and they were going to make the lugs thicker too? I mean, the case back and, a lot of the other parts, but I mean, everything lines up to me. So everything works great. And this, as you can see, does not have a power reserve. So everything is lining up really great. I mean, you look at it from this angle, you probably would never guess that this thing is aftermarket, except for the fact that you see that S-signed crown, and you know that Seiko's notorious for not really having great straps until you really get in the more expensive range. I'd say $600 and above is when you really start finding nice straps, except for maybe the Sarb. That's a decent strap. The buckle isn't great. I should say not strap, but bracelet. And that thing is of course discontinued and was such a bang per buck, real, treat, that I wouldn't call that the norm of what Seiko's known for. But yeah, this thing is gorgeous, guys. There's no loom on this. Tempted to still do a low light transition. What do you guys think? Should I do it? Let's go ahead and throw it in. All right, let's go ahead and hit the lights. Of course, there's no loom, so I got my low light transition piece right here, nice and ready. Just so you guys can get an idea of the finishing on there, and of course it gives you a little chance to appreciate that dial. That thing is, you know, showtime status. Look at that, the way everything picks up. So as you can see, of course, my hot studio lights do a great job of imitating direct sunlight, but that's not what you're going to spend most of your days. And also that big bright hot lights are definitely going to wash out some of the finishing there. But take a look at the way the light rolls off, the uniformity in the brushing. Look at those links. You see how even and restrained the light is as it's coming off the links. It's because you have really fine and uniform brushing. So as you can see there, I mean, that's probably at its roughest angle of the brush. It's not too shabby, especially considering that this is, you know, a bracelet you can get for $100 versus a bracelet. Let's say you were to buy a Swiss watch and one that has a replaceable bracelet for $100. Let's face it, it's not going to be a good bracelet. It's not going to probably even have screws. So, and then we even go into Seiko. Goodness, I can only imagine what a $100 replacement bracelet's going to be at the Seiko level. I think they charge more for the hollow SKX Jubilee if you're really going to buy it. So, with that said, I think this this bracelet, if you have this Cocktail Time or really any model version of it, is really going to give you kind of that complete look. If you wanted this thing on bracelet, although yes, it is a strap monster. You guys saw the review. You've seen my Instagram. This thing looks epic on straps. Yes. But for me, I'm a bracelet guy. There's nothing more versatile than a nice steel bracelet. And there's probably, out of all the bracelet designs, nothing really more comfortable than a Jubilee. Or just, you know, well-executed multi-link. There's a lot of good bracelets that fall into that range. But this thing's fully articulated, of course, very handsome, and I think it still ties into the design language of Seiko watches. It's not like you're putting a Jubilee bracelet on a watch that from a brand that has never had a Jubilee. So Seiko's really known for Jubilees, and they have some variations on the Jubilee as well. So, you know, I think this thing looks great. And of course, it's just another Grand Slam from Strapcode. I definitely expect these things to sell like hotcakes, and for me to see this strap all over Instagram starting now. With that said, if you like the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.